Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition rate. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support at sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give a shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international award-winning author Mia Mosinzia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Mosinzia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. It takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, and 1 target, where truth is an illusion and the ones you love will be the first to go missing. Is available on paperback and ebook on Amazon. Missing by Mia Mosinzia has garnered great reviews and even endorsed by many famous Hollywood celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today before it goes missing by Mia Mosinzia, available on Amazon. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, and Apple. Coming soon to Podbean, Buzzsprout, Pandora, and TuneIn. Heard worldwide on Geo 7, Radio Public, Himalaya, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel and follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today, and support the Mike Wagner Show through PayPal at paypal.com/the Mike Wagner voiceover. Also Anchor FM/support, and also check out the merchandise section at Amazon.com/the Mike Wagner Show. And also for great good ideas and for great books, check out Amazon.com/Mia Mosinzia. We're here with a terrific gentleman from the other side of the pond. He is a writer, musician, TV radio host, author, DJ, ideas, spoken word, and I'm sure you want to throw in something else too. Feel free to do so. I mean, just a king scroll of just accomplishments, and very big in the UK. And he's got a new book out called Manifesto with Dale Vince about his life and vision of a post-pandemic green future. And also, coming up in 2021, we'll be talking about a new book, The Art of Darkness, and also writes and runs Louder Than War website, and runs a music writing fest, Louder Than Words, in Manchester, and also launched a vegan fest in 19, and frontman of the Membranes and Gold Blade, and has done a lot of things. Live, ladies and gentlemen, from the Plus Studios in beautiful Manchester, UK, the very, very talented writer, musician, TV radio host, author, DJ, idea, spoken word, and you can throw something else in there, the very talented John Robb. John, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. That was a pretty impressive introduction.
Well, you got a pretty impressive list as well, too, so it deserves it. I mean, is there something else you want to throw in there first of all before we start? It's like you're a writer, musician, TV, radio host, author, DJ, idea, spoken word, and you also you have a new book out which is called Manifesto with Dale Vince, and coming up later on, The Art of Darkness, talking about the goth culture. You also write and run Louder Than War, and also a writing fest called Louder Than Words, and you also front the Membranes and Gold Blade. And before we get into all that, if you want to add something, that's great. Tell us how you got started.
Well, for me, it was punk rock in the 70s. It sort of gave you the opportunity to get involved, because before that, music culture seemed to be what other people did at the other end of the country. I was in the north of England. It's a bit like being in Dakota, I guess. And you think, it feels... So growing up in the 70s, everything felt like it went on in London. But when punk came along, it was like anybody could do it, anybody could get involved. And it's really empowering. And it's like a cultural revolution. Everybody could join in. So it wasn't just buying the records, it was getting guitars and making your own music. Then we started making a fanzine and writing about the music, and it just kind of went on from there, really. I mean, I think that's it's a really powerful message, isn't it, really? Because, I mean, often show business or music is just about the elite, and, 20 people are allowed to do it and everyone else has to clap. But the great thing about punk was that everybody's allowed to do it. The audience was the star. And you could actually be created by dressing up or making the music, or just the way you talked, or you could be a poet, or you could be a writer. It was anything. And I thought that was a really amazing cultural moment.
That is amazing. And what was the one precise moment that influenced you into what you're doing today? So what was that one moment that simply said, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
I guess there isn't one precise moment that goes down to 1 minute, but it is that time, that late 70s, that punk thing. That would, I guess you could call that a series of quite intense moments. And the idea, the Sex Pistols came along, and that was exciting. And then up here in Manchester was a band called Buzzcocks who made their own record.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of making your own record then was an utter revolution, because you had to be in a major record label before that to release records. And suddenly you can make your own records, put your own records out, and you could get written about in the music papers and played on the radio, and people would listen.
Wow.
And that was, yeah, and that was a really. I mean, nowadays, of course, everybody puts all the music online, which is really amazing, and everybody can be creative. But the only problem is now that everybody does it, which is kind of like a contradiction in a sense, because the punk thing was, come on, everybody do it. But
Mm-hmm.
when everybody does do it, I mean, everybody's playing and nobody's listening. So
it's almost like you're shouting at you're shouting, you're trying to rise above the top, but nobody's listening. That's what more sounds like. And plus it sounds like it's more become of a saturation, where you said that there's way too many out there that just trying to fight their way to the top. But then when you when of course they had their own record labels, their own music and everything, how much did it cost to start your own record label back then?
Well, it's such a long time ago. I was thinking the other day, this is like 45 years ago, which is insane. It's like a historical epoch. It was like the Second World War was closer to punk rock than punk rock is to now. It's just a really weird thing, because it seems really recent. So, to how much would it cost? Well, I say nowadays it would probably cost an equivalent to putting out your own record would cost you $500-600. But then because there was less people doing it, you have more chance of getting on the radio, and it's a more worthwhile exercise. And it's, in a way, I think everybody should do it still, and everybody should be creative if they want to be. But you should also realize that for most people, it'll always only be a hobby. And maybe you're not that good at it, but that doesn't matter, because you can't measure talent, but if it makes you feel something, it makes you feel connected to the world, or connected to a few other people who understand what you're doing, that's a number one record in a sense. But if you expect it to be bigger and a huge career, and you're going to be playing at Super Bowl or whatever at the half time or whatever they do, that's
They can have it.
Ain't gonna happen. No.
Well, the way the
that's showbiz.
Yeah. Well, the way two teams play in the Super Bowl, they can have it. How part of it. It's like, I mean, being right here is fine as is. I mean, thank God for social media, social distancing and everything. This is our Super Bowl right here. It's like, who needs to be like at, say, Tampa Stadium, or you play at Wembley Stadium, or you say and play at the Tokyo Dome? It's like, you got your Super Bowl right here and in your living room.
Yeah, I think that as well. I mean, those kind of massive spectacles of that level, like Super Bowl, which actually they have on British TV, even though I've never known anybody who likes the sport. It's almost like a show business bulldozer. The big stars, the big games, they kind of dominate the world, but nobody's that engaged. It kind of flickers on a TV in the background in a bar. It's not. And the culture I like is the culture that's so powerful, it totally engrosses you. So if you hear something like a piece of music and it completely switches your mood, and you have to listen to it and everyone else blanks out, that's the opposite to me of a Super Bowl or a stadium band. You go and see a huge band in a stadium, the audience is actually slightly bored. I go to gigs all the time, or I did before the pandemic. And a smaller gig would be a very intense experience. It's communal.
Mm-hmm.
It's full, and everybody's completely on the same page. But you go in a stadium and everybody's sitting there eating chips, and they're waiting for the hit. And when the band plays a hit, they all stand up and clap and go home. And okay, that's if people are happy doing that, that's okay. I have no problem with it. But for me personally, it's just a really odd experience. It's just really uninteresting. It could be anything. It could be like a car show or something, or a gig. It just kind of blurs into a nothingness, a pastel shade.
Mm-hmm. And of course too that being music and everything else is taking an experience. And who are some of your favorite artists and singers and punk rock groups growing up?
What did I think of them?
No, I said,
Oh,
who are some of
sorry.
your favorites growing up?
Oh well, obviously the big ones that everyone heard of, like the Pistols and the Clash, really important. But there's other bands that didn't make it in America, like the Stranglers, who were kind of half punk, but they were just weirder and genuinely more nasty, but funny as well. Very British, dark sense of humour, and the music was psychedelic punk in a sense, and they were an amazing band. It's a shame they never really did much in America because I think you probably missed out one of our best bands. I mean, they were known at a cult level. A lot of American bands I've met over the years really like them, but they never got to the mainstream audience like the Clash did. So those kind of groups are really important. I mean, obviously, I like all the massive classics, the 60s bands, the Beatles and the Stones. I mean, they are eternally great bands and they sound as good now as they did when I was a kid and things. So I mean, it's really hard to know what your listeners would know. I mean, a lot of the music I like is because I listen to a lot of music. Inevitably, a lot of it's going to be quite small, culty bands, and I can rattle off a list, but it's just going to sound like a list of gobbledygook names for listeners.
What you never know who's listening, so go right ahead. I mean, this is worldwide, by the way, too. It's not just restricted, just one country. It's worldwide. I mean, 24/7, 365. So.
It's interesting to say that because what's been a really noticeable thing the last 20 years is the Anglo-American empire of pop culture is not as strong as it used to be. So if you went to Russia 20 years ago, yes, there was Russian bands, but now you go to Russia and the Russian bands are amazing. They're as good as any bands that come out of the major cities in the UK or America, and the same in Norway or even places like Estonia, which has got an incredible music scene. And I'm lucky because I get to travel to loads of music, like convention events where lots of new bands play, and I go to them all over the world. And you see all these amazing bands, and the level is super high now. So you could get bands like Short Paris in Russia, who are a stunning band, and all they need is one break, and they could be massive. There's bands in Norway like Ulver and Wardruna who sort of like came out of black metal but play this kind of weird Viking folk music now, which they're actually part of the soundtrack of the Vikings TV series, which I think might be on in America. But it's done really well, that series, yeah.
I did watch a couple of the Vikings episodes, and I remember that, and I remember some of the soundtrack to it, and it's like, that is very amazing. I actually watched a couple of episodes on Netflix.
Oh, very
very
it's a group called Wardruna, and they're quite a small cult band for ages, but then they got to do the soundtrack on that program. They're getting quite big now. But he was a perfect choice for that because he's actually quite academic. He was a drummer in a black metal band.
Oh, wow.
He makes his own instruments now. He makes all his old Viking instruments out of bones and things.
Oh my goodness.
And the music's really haunting and really atmospheric. And it does sound like a wet, melancholic day in a Norwegian fjord.
and I'm feeling it the way you described it too. It's cold, wet, it's damp. It's like, I'm gonna kill somebody.
Well, actually, yeah, it doesn't actually have any violence in it. It's more subdued melancholy, which is a beautiful thing, And we could connect with that living in Manchester because it rains a lot here and it's quite murky. And over the years, of course, we had Joy Division, who are one of the greatest bands of all time and pretty well invented that kind of modern melancholy sound in the late 70s, early 80s. Hugely influential bands. I mean, nowadays, if I go to Russia to an event, every kid and every single band I meet in Russia is completely amazed if you're from Manchester because you're from the same city as where Joy Division came from. So they're far bigger now than when they were going. When they would be playing to 100 people at their gigs. The singer committed suicide, but if he hadn't committed suicide and they were still going, there'd be a stadium band now worldwide. Like the Cure are. There would be that kind of size.
I did remember their lead singer committing suicide and being part of it as well too. That was almost like Elvis passing or John Lennon getting shot. That just sent ripples all over the community too. And you talked about Norway as well too, being one of the up and coming, having the hottest music scene out there along those lines. And what are some of the the countries that you notice that are about to become up and coming, like Norway did? It was very, at the bottom, and they rose their way to the top thanks to Vikings. What are some of the other countries, or what's one country that you know right now is about to be up and coming, just like Norway being a music superpower?
Well, Holland's always had a really good music scene, but it's got a very good music scene now. A lot of very good young bands playing kind of sort of post-punky garage rock and roll. I think a lot of them they could actually be from America. A lot of them. It's kind of, I would say it's almost mid-Atlantic. They have that British starkness, but that American college radio kind of lo-fi mixed sound. So there's a very good scene there. I think any country you go to Turkey, there's a great music scene there. I remember about 10 years ago, well, not actually, probably about 10 years ago, went to an event in India, and there was a metal showcase gig on. And
Wow.
I went, this guy runs a metal magazine. We're thinking, let's go support this. They're going to be doing their best. And we went there, and we go, wow, these are actually equal to any metal band you see in the world. It wasn't pastiche. It wasn't fans trying to emulate their heroes. Mm-hmm. It was just it was as good. They had it down very good, but they had a little Indian twist to it as well. You could tell.
Oh, wow.
That they were from a different place, which was, I don't know if that was deliberate or nuanced or just in their DNA, but it was great. Yeah. In Bangalore, that is. But Bangalore's the capital of Indian metal music.
Indian metal music. I like that. And they just invented all by themselves, didn't listen to anything from other countries, even America or their neighboring countries like Pakistan, Turkey, or anything, or even England. It's all done themselves and just done from inside and no outside influences.
Well, they'd obviously listen to the classics, but they interpret it in their own terms. That's what they've done. I mean, like all musics, that there's one or two bands that kind of start the form, and forever they're always referenced, aren't they? So in metal, if you're 16 now and you're in Bismarck and you're in the garage with your pals putting a metal band together, at some point you're going to have to listen to Black Sabbath just to see where this thing started and what your version of it is 40, 50 years later, And I mean, I'm not actually a nostalgic person. I like music to go forwards, but there are certain bands who had something down that was so good. They're classic, aren't they? So Black Sabbath will always sound classic, in 100 years' time. Even if metal doesn't exist anymore and you play one of their records, it will sound classic. The way Mozart or Beethoven, all the Beatles, and the Beatles always will sound classic forever. The way that people always wear a pair of jeans or a pinstripe suit, there's certain things that will never go away. So we could all be living on Mars, but we still have pinstripe jackets and listen to Black Sabbath.
The new fashion statement: pinstripe suits and Black Sabbath t-shirts. I think I'm going to order one on Amazon right now.
but we'd have something else, like completely different trousers, it'd be a mix. It'd be a future past mix. So that's punk was like that. Punk was cut and paste. It was the future and it was the past, all chopped up into little bits, stuck back together in a different order. So some of the punk styles were really old. They were like Teddy Boys or 50s rockers, but some of it was future things that nobody ever seen before. And the same with the music as well. It was kind of the past, of its time, and of the future. I think the only time a musical form tends to die is when it gets stuck. So if that 15-year-old kid's band in Bismarck listened to Black Sabbath and all they could do is just be Black Sabbath and sound like them, then that's the death of a form, isn't it? But if they could take something from Sabbath and put it into their terms, their generation, filter through their experiences, then they're on the road, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. And that's a really good key component as well, too. You also funded a couple of bands yourself. We'll talk about those in just a minute. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition rate. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. sonicweb.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give a shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international award-winning author Mia Mosin-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Mosin-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, and 1 target, where truth is an illusion and the ones you love will be the first to go missing. It's available in paperback and ebook on Amazon. Missing by Mia Mosin-Zia has garnered great reviews and even endorsed and loved by many Hollywood celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today before it goes missing by Mia Mosin-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page, facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, iTunes, Google Play, Amazon, Audible, and Apple. Coming soon to Podbean, Buzzsprout, Pandora, and TuneIn. Heard worldwide on Geo 7, Radio Public, Himalaya, and more. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel, and follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today, and support the Mike Wagner Show via PayPal at paypal.com/Mike Wagner voiceover. Also on Anchor FM at anchor.fm/support, and also check out the merchandise section at amazon.com/the Mike Wagner Show with t-shirts and more. And for more complete merchandise, great gift ideas, and for more books, go to amazon.com/Mia Mosin-Zia and check it out today. We're here with the multi-talented writer, musician, TV, radio host, author, DJ, ideas, and spoken word, John Robb, here on the Mike Wagner Show, talking about some of the humble beginnings. And we also talked about some of the history of punk rock, which was very fascinating. And you also found a couple of those too, like The Membranes and Goldblade. And tell us about those.
Yeah, well, I thought because of punk rock and because it was really empowering, we put a band together when we were 15, 16, and that was called The Membranes. We never actually learned to play properly because it's an interesting thing in my generation of musicians. We didn't learn cover versions. We just got on and did it. So if I meet older musicians or younger musicians, they learn other people's songs. It's probably the right way to do it. But that wasn't a consideration in that period I was in. You just got on stage, even if you couldn't play. The first gig we played, we never even plugged in an amp before. We didn't even know how to tune the guitars. We didn't know what chords were. We just got up there and started playing. And weirdly, all these years later, I kind of in the same kind of zone. So a lot of the songs that I write, I can either hear them in my head, or I just play around until I get something I like the sound of. And I have no idea if it makes any musical sense at all. It just makes sense to me, and that's the only way I can make music. And I speak to other people from my time, and a lot of people are the same. You know, Peter Hook, the bass player in Joy Division, can't play cover versions either. He was offered Bill Wyman's job in the Stones. He's on the shortlist, and he said that would be amazing, but I can't play any of your songs. I just have my own style. You know, that's what we all did. We all thought the most important thing was to have your own style playing, and to make your songs that sounded in your own sound. And that was our whole thing, you know. And when you played, if people didn't get it, that wasn't your problem. I mean, of course, it makes your life more difficult. But it's not like you pander. You're not going to say, oh, please like my music. You just got up there and played it. And the people got it, and the other people just hated it. But that was fantastic. Yeah.
I can imagine getting out there and say, please like my music, hate my music. I mean, I think we just came up with something here for you.
Well, actually, it's even more ambivalent than that. It wasn't like you deliberately wanted people to hate it. You just didn't care. You just played it. I find this when you do support. We've done quite a lot of support tours, and half the room is never going to like anything you do. So but it doesn't make any difference. You just play there, and if they look really bored, that's not my problem, is it? You know.
Of course, they say you can entertain everybody, but you can't please everyone. It's like you're bored, go do something else. We're going to continue to play and have fun. There's people out there who still have fun. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, it's brilliant when people completely connect with it. It's an amazing feeling when you're making something that's so personal, not totally esoteric, but not mainstream in any sense. But if people get it, and when they do get it, they really do get it. And that's a powerful feeling. I think that's part of music. I think in many ways, if you play in the bands, the first level is that thing in a room, and the Doors would talk about this, that communal mind where everyone's playing and everyone's on the same page. And Nobody has to say anything because everybody just knows where the song's going. It's so instinctive. The next level is great is you're playing to an audience, and in a sense, they come in on the communal minds. They may never have heard you before, but they know where it's going and they know what it's about. And it's mystical, isn't it? It's beyond any art form. That weird mystery of music. I mean, every other art form, there's triggers and there's things that make sense, and that's why people understand them. But with music, it's indefinable. I've written about music all my life, and it is utterly indefinable. To why you connect to a certain piece of music makes no sense at all, does it?
Mm-hmm. And of course, speaking of writing, that you write about music, that you also run and write Louder Than War website, and you also run a music writing fest called Louder Than Words in Manchester. And tell us about those two projects.
Well, I was always a music writer because I started in the fanzines and went to the music press. Then after that, of course, the logical thing was I wrote for the first music website in Britain, which was called Play Louder. That's in the days when people go, this is so early on the internet. In fact, I actually had the first email of anybody I knew. It took about 5 of us to set it up, and when we got it, we go, who do we email? We didn't know anybody else.
You got mail. You got mail.
Well, that was in the days when it was CompuServe, and it was all, you didn't get a name, it was all numbers. So your email would be like 876-99742@CompuServe.com. And you could never remember your email. It's keep writing it down all the time.
I'm sorry, what was that again? 876-5309 CompuServe, Jenny or something? I mean, what was that again?
That's what it was like. It was crazy, wasn't it? And then gradually people knew I had emails. So people go, oh, you're on email as well. That's amazing. And it was like that. It was so primitive. That's only 20 years ago. So then the website started coming. Then there's a music website. And people go, well, what's the point? Well, why would anybody want to go and look on a computer to read about music when we got magazines? And that's what people thought then. And then gradually, do you remember the early music videos on the internet where it would take you about half an hour to download it, to watch it?
My gosh, oh man, it took forever. Like you got the modem, the dial-up, and then you got someone said, "Are you off the phone yet? I gotta make a phone call." It was tying up the landline. Those big phones, like the rotary, the touchstones, like you hook up, it's like like that, and it takes forever and ever and ever to download. And even going before that, you had MTV music videos, which really it's like music channels up like 12 years, and the rest is like Snooki, 16 and Pregnant, and more, and said the hell with music. They still call it MTV. I remember that.
Yeah, MTV was a strange thing, wasn't it? It was kind of it's like a music channel with no love of music to it at all, was it? And as time went on, there was less and less music and more people just talking, but not even talking about anything interesting. Just it became like sort of like really marshmallow celebrity culture with celebrities nobody ever heard of. You know what? Maybe they should have just done that in the first place, not pretended they like music. So I never understand that with people who want to get famous making music. Why don't they just go and be famous and just get out of the way? Because I mean, music's like it's a trench of people just falling into a trench of trying to be famous, and they never get famous doing music. It's why don't they go do sport or celebrity culture? Just go sit in a house for 6 months and get filmed. I mean, that's the level that people want, or become the president of America. It's celebrity culture, isn't it?
It was more like pre-American Idol, and of course, thinking about with the early days, video did kill a radio star, and now it's like social media killed the video star, and what's going to kill the social media star? It's almost like what's next?
Well, it is, and well, in a sense, it's the social media is morphing as well, because it's like older people think they're really cool because they're on Facebook, but kids think Facebook's just naff and it's for their parents. And kids are only on Facebook to spy on their parents, aren't they? To see what their parents are up to. I mean, because now you get to TikTok, and even TikTok has now become, if you're 15, TikTok's what 22-year-olds do. So it's, in a way, it's already moving and morphing into different things. I mean, so the way people use TikTok is utterly different from old school social media, isn't it? Facebook does seem like it is. Everyone on Facebook is quite old, and has its own cliches and their own ways of people communicating with each other on it. And so if you're 18 and you look at somebody's Facebook page, you just think it was incredibly boring. It's like, I always remember that. It always makes you laugh. When I was growing up, people's parents would moan about them watching TV. Oh, they just watch TV all the time. And now those same kids who watch TV all the time moan about their kids being on the internet. Why don't we all get together as a family and sit around and watch the telly? Looks like 30 years ago. Why don't we all sit around and read a book together? So every generation has no idea what the other generation's codes are. Whether it's Generation X, Z, Boomers, like TikTokers. It's
I guess that is the new thing after millennials or Generation Z. Yeah, it's the TikTokers. You're right. And of course, you talked about the days and everybody sat around and read a book or, listen to stories, and then people start reading newspapers. Now it's just like, people, look at their phones and everything else sitting around the dinner table. And I got a great story to tell you as well, too, about why it's important to have, family time, dinner time, because we're at a Mexican restaurant in Dickinson. And we also had a thing where it's you sit around. There was a singing waiter from Mexico that came and sang, and he was singing our whole table at the time. He says, "You know why? Because you're not on your phones. If I see somebody on their phones, I won't sing to them." So that's why. So that's why the most important thing is there are times you got to put down your phone.
That made you want to get your phone out.
Unless you want to take a picture or try to do a TikTok or so.
But then 30 years ago, you go to a train and everybody be sat there reading the paper.
And of course,
back in England,
right?
Because in England, on public transport, of course, nobody wants to catch anybody's eye and speak to them, so people just hide behind their papers. And it's quite weird if you get on a train now because you don't see any newspapers in the whole train.
Mm-hmm. And of course, they're on their phones as well, too. And of course, what's next as well, too. And there's also some books as well, too. We'll talk about your two books, Manifesto, written with Dale Vince, and also coming up later in the year, The Art of Darkness, A History of Golf Culture. We're here with John Robb, writer, musician, TV, radio host, author, DJ, idea, spoken word on the Mike Wagner Show. We'll be back with John Robb talking about his two books as an author after this timeout. We're back with the multi-talented John Robb out of Manchester, England, the Mike Wagner Show, writer, musician, TV, radio host, author, DJ, ideas, spoken word. And we talked about, being in Gold Blade and the Membranes as well, too. And, of course, he did some writing with Louder Than War and also Louder Than Words with the Music Fest and everything. You also have a couple of books out, too, and which is called Manifesto, written with Dale Vince about life and vision of the post-pandemic green future. And you can tell us more about Manifesto.
Yeah, well, Dale Vince is he's a green energy provider. So he has wind turbines. And he's the biggest green energy provider in the UK now. But that's interesting enough. But what's really interesting about Dale, he was a traveller for years, about 15 years. So he's like a hippie traveller who lived on a bus. So with no electricity and complete cut off. And I don't think that culture exists in America. But in England, in the late 80s, it was a very big culture. People converting these old buses and driving from one festival to another. And the police smashed them all up at one thing called the Battle of Beanfield, where they got beaten up by the cops. All the hippies got, truncheoned and everything. And he was one of them. And then, so he carried on that for about a year, and then he built a little windmill in the field and powered it. And then he worked. He'd never been to college to do this. He just worked it all out by going to the library, look at a book, welded loads of bits of metal together, built a windmill. And then he started selling them to Scottish Power, like a power company in Scotland, and then making quite a lot of money. And then it became this. He's got loads of windmills now, but he also makes electric cars. He's got vegan food in 400 schools.
Wow.
So he's kind of like a British version. He's like a likable version of Elon Musk. In fact, him and Elon Musk ended up in court in the UK, and Dale beat Elon Musk in court without using a lawyer. So he's one of those guys. I mean, he's smart, but he doesn't care if he loses. He knows if he thinks he's right, he will stay in that space, and he won't stand down. even if a billionaire's taken him to court, So his life story is good. So he wrote a book about that. But half the book was also a vision of a post-pandemic green future, which I'm interested in as well. And I met Dale because I went to interview him for the website to talk about how bands could tour and leave less of a carbon footprint. It's very difficult, but we can leave less than we have now. And it's just interesting to get those ideas. And from that, we kind of spun off into loads of other things, So there's a lot of stuff in the book about how the future. I mean, the pandemic is a disaster, but the biggest disaster is the one we can't even see, and it's the ongoing disaster with the environment. And I know everyone goes, "Oh God," people talk about the environment again, but it is a problem. But his thing and my thing, we were saying, we have to make it more engaging. It's not about what you give up; it's about how you can still have all the things we have now that we like doing, but we just make sure they don't wreck the environment. So we like to call it green populism because we think it's quite funny turning the populists back to front. So they're not like all these right-wing populists. This is a green populism. It's a positive populism which makes life better. But you can still have your cars. You can still go and watch football. I mean, Dale owns a football club now, and it's the world's only vegan football club, and it's doing quite well. They're going to, you can only eat vegan food in the ground. And this is an example of what green populism is, because all the fans didn't like it at first because they couldn't eat meat burgers. But when they ate the burgers that he was making, they were going, "Oh, these actually taste better." And now they all love the vegan burgers. And that's green populism in action. So you can still have your burgers, but they're just a cow didn't have to die for you to get your burger. And he's going to build an eco stadium. He's got loads of plans for this stuff. And it's an organic football pitch, but it's not done in that way. A lot of that culture, which the ideas are great, but it's very preachy, and it gets people's backs up. So the idea of this is just to make great ideas and make them so they're for everybody. And it doesn't mean you have to be a monk to do it. You can still have a normal life. You can still have your car, you can still have a burger, but it's just vegan and it doesn't taste like cardboard. It's all that. So that's the ideas of it, really. So I think it's a great idea because it doesn't have to be specialist, but it's also a necessary idea because everything's getting, we have a very big problem here and we need to sort it out. But it's also about creating solutions as well. So a lot of people will say to someone like Greta Thunberg, if you're so clever, why don't you invent a plane that doesn't pollute the environment? And you go, well, hang on, she's only 18, she's not been on the plane yet. But then you say that to Dale Vince, and he goes, well, actually, we're working on that at the moment. So they've got an electric plane they're going to have in 5 years' time. I'll tell you what he came up with the other week, which is amazing. It's a thing called sky diamonds, where you suck all the air out of the sky, you take the carbon of it, compress the carbon, make industrial diamonds out of it and sell them. And then you clean the air and pump it back out the other side. So it cleans the pollution out there and creates diamonds out of the carbon. So
diamonds out of carbons, huh? Interesting. Like the actual diamonds?
Yeah, and you from basically a massive tube, sucking the air in, splitting it and compressing it. It's amazing, isn't it? And he's also got this thing with the fields turning the grass into energy as well. So his argument is, if you don't have cattle, we don't want to get rid of the farms and the farmers, give them a better industry. They can make money out of energy, but they don't have to drill oil. You can make energy out of grass, so there's all these kind of ideas. It's a lot of them very, very left field, but they're moving closer to the mainstream all the time, So, I mean, where you are in Dakota, I'd imagine it's a fantastic place for wind power. I mean, you're on the plains, aren't you? I imagine the wind howling across there.
well, actually, up by us, we have a lot of wind towers as well, too. And, we thought that the wind towers were providing energy for us, but actually where we're at, it's actually going to Duluth, Minnesota at their power facility. And of course, you talked about as well, too, like with the electric plane. And I read a while back that in Abu Dhabi, that they actually tested an electric, or is it solar powered? I think it's one of the two, like a 747, a 737 jet, carrying hundreds of passengers. And I think they put that to the test and they said it actually succeeded, if I'm correct. And I read about it's like, how the heck do you do that? You mean on electric and solar, and if they can pull it off, I mean, with his plane and whatever else, I mean, I'm sure it can be done. But of course, we're kind of step behind the times in a way too, and some stick to their ideas as well. But I also read too that GM's goal is to create all electric cars by 2035. So that's why I was reading. I thought, whew, got a ways, but it seems like it's quick nowadays.
Yeah, the UK, they're aiming for 2030, but Dale says it's got to be 5 years. So it's got to be, but it's going. Well, I was reading the other day, was it Sweden where there's more electric cars than petrol cars now.
Really?
So it's actually moving very, very quickly. I think the two things that held it back was getting the electric chargers in, but you see a lot of those around now. And it won't be that long you can actually just charge it in your house in the drive of your house. Mm-hmm. And also the batteries, getting the batteries more efficient, less wasteful. And is it the titanium which they get from the open cast mine in Africa, which is awful for the environment. But they got ideas for that now as well, how to work around that, and also have longer lasting batteries. So you'd have to keep charging all the time. You can have batteries that can last 6 months, because batteries actually can last a long time, but a lot of the big companies made them weaker because they can make more money out of them. So, I mean, it was just greed that created this system. But the strange thing is, it's actually good for capitalism. All those people, if these people are really fascinated with just making loads of money, which is their whole raison d'etre, can actually make loads of money out of going green. And they've worked this out now, haven't they? Because that's what's driving it. It's not idealism. It's greed, but at least let them be greedy if it doesn't wreck the planet for the rest of us or for people's children. It's actually for us, isn't it? Because within 20 years, we could be in a very, very bad situation unless we do something. Mm-hmm. This is not a left or right wing issue. This is actually it's a battle for survival. And I like that because I love ideas as well. Ideas are interesting things. You think, oh, that's a cool idea, and I think and change is always good as well. Things don't have to be the same forever, do they? It's to go forwards in a positive way is good. Humans are good at going forwards. Mm-hmm. They always like to drag everything to going backwards. And rose tinted specs. Oh, the 70s were great, but people always forget half the time it was.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Right, exactly. And we're here with John Robb, writer, musician, TV, radio host, author, DJ. Ideas of spoken word of the Mike Wagner Show, and this crossed my mind here, John. And you talk about going electric, all electric, and everything. And do you think the cost of electricity with all these electric vehicles is that going to go up, or is it going to stay steady, or will it go down because the demand is going to be so plentiful, or the supply, I should say, supply and demand?
Well, I think in the end, theoretically, all the electricity will be provided by wind power, water power, and maybe a chunk of it coming from plants and grass, which is, this is feasible. So we won't be beholden to dodgy regimes in the Middle East dictating the price of oil. Every country, pretty well every country in the world is in a situation where they could build wind power, wind turbines. The investment is worth it, and the wind is always there. It's natural. It's not going to run out. Oil's finite, isn't it? There's going to be a point it's going to run out anyway. So we need these alternatives. But then if people start putting solar panels and roofs, all these kind of things, these ideas have been around for years, haven't they? Surely, theoretically, it will bring the price down. You would have thought, wouldn't you? Initially it will cost more because it's changing the whole system of how these. You've got to build a whole new infrastructure. But once it's in place and it's maintained properly, surely that would bring the price of everything down, wouldn't it? I mean, I don't really understand why you can't have small wind turbines in cities. You get the giant ones out in the countrysides, but why don't they have them, in suburbs, providing like sort of micro energy supplies. Mm-hmm. So it's all this stuff, and these ideas are important. And to think, and in the end, I think the prices will come down. I mean, the basic thing is we need energy, and we need to make energy that doesn't destroy the planet. It's a simple equation, isn't it? It's like 1 and 1 makes 2. It's having. I think a lot of these people work in the green industry. They say it's a political willpower to do it. You know, a lot of politicians, they're in power for 4 years and then they get kicked out again. These are long-term solutions. These are 20-year solutions. They're not going to be around to take the credit for it at the end. You know, this is their thinking, isn't it? But it shouldn't be about that. It should be thinking about your legacy, not even your legacy. I mean, you should be thinking about the planet collectively, humans and everything that lives on this planet. After you're here, we all, each of us, have a responsibility to the planet. I mean, one of the great things about being human is we're aware of the whole planet. You know, I mean, animals are super intelligent. They're far smarter than people like to think they are. But I don't think animals think in terms of the planet or the universe. We're unique like that. We can think outside our own survival. We can think. I mean, animals think collectively, but they don't think about what. And like an animal in England's not thinking about what an animal in New Zealand's doing, whereas what we do. So we can think of that in terms of the whole planet. We can think in terms of either. I mean, this is how it plays out. As a human, you either think in terms of wrecking the whole planet or trying to save it. So it's pros and cons, isn't it? I mean, we do some amazingly wonderful things. You know, the highest art, the most incredible science, the most. Even though I'm not religious, but you can go to religious ceremony, and there's an incredible beauty to it, and that organization, that concentration to make that work, is mind blowing. And then we do the most appalling things as well. We have massive wars and we kill each other, and we spend all day shouting at each other on the internet. It's trivial compared to war, but equally stupid. And it's so we could do that, but at the same time, we can make a painting that can make you cry, or a piece of music that's transcendental, you know, and it's, or you know, we get into the middle of a pandemic, and 5 or 6 scientists in Oxford and England work out a vaccine for it in about 4 weeks flat. You know, I mean, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? That what we can actually do when we set our minds to it. So even though we've got a lot of problems at the moment with the planet, we also have a lot of solutions.
And does indeed too. Of course, you know, thinking about the whole thing with the wind technology and all the new things that are out there as well too. That you also explained that you know I was thinking about animals you mentioned as well too. The one thing I do have to say about animals that they're better predictors of the weather than we are. To be honest with you, you know, when's winter coming, spring coming. It's not groundhogs. It's any animal out there. They're better weather predictors than what we have meteorologists, satellites, or even your National Weather Service.
That's true, but then we got cut off from nature, didn't we? So that was one of our problems. That's playing it out now, isn't it? I mean, probably 5,000-10,000 years ago, we didn't own all those things, but now we have to look at the TV or on our phones to see if the weather's changing. But one time we'd have felt it, you know. I mean, the intelligence level of animals is quite astounding. It's the most bizarre animals are really smart. Like octopuses are really, really clever. So if an octopus sees you, Mike, and then 20 years later you're in your boat and you go past the octopus again, it will remember your face. Isn't that amazing? Yeah,
wow.
That.
Well, it shows gotta be nice to them. So.
Oh, of course, yeah, because he'll remember you. And also, do you know that crows will sit on a building and they watch you, not because they're protecting themselves, because they're actually interested in what you're doing. So they're kind of going, what are these humans up to today? They didn't do that yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, people always think it's just dogs. Dogs are quite smart, but pigs are smarter than dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And African grey parrot are smarter than a dog. So it's it's. I mean, animals are super smart. It's just they don't have a sense of the whole planet. But you know what? Maybe they do, and we don't know that yet, because we there's a lot to be learned, isn't there? You know, the interconnectivity of life is also fascinating and really important as well. And I think hopefully we learned a lesson from the pandemic. You know, that you can't have the market so everything's crammed together, you know, and animals and chopping them all up and letting the blood splatter everywhere and things. Maybe we have to treat things a bit more respect and a bit more intelligence. You know, because we're capable of it. This is the thing, we are capable of doing the right thing, but for some reason we always choose to do the wrong thing, don't we?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And where can we find Manifesto at?
We can get it online. It's Dale's. You can get it on Amazon, but it's probably better if you buy it from the company. The Dale's company is just Ecotricity, because I don't think Mr. Bezos, who runs Amazon, I mean, does he need any more money? I don't think so.
I think he's trying to be the first trillionaire, and he's like, oh crap, I can't do this. I'll get someone else to help me be a trillionaire. It's like it's finally coming to his senses that he can't be a trillionaire. I mean, he did beat the crap out of Elon Musk in terms of being wealthier than him, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and the whole Apple crew, CEO, whatever it is. I mean, he's accomplished that, but it's about time he's getting help for someone to help him be a trillionaire. I mean, he's admitting to it, which is good. So
I know. I mean, I know people worship money, but having that much money is obscene, really. You know, yes, he took a gamble to set the company up, and he does deserve a payday for taking the gamble, but not one that big. You know, not when there's people around the world who've got nothing. I mean, if you made that much money, surely you'd feel slightly bad about it.
right, yeah.
You put the TV on, and you don't even have to go. I was going to say Africa, but in America, you can go around any city and there's people on the streets. In the UK now, in fact, I remember going to America in the 80s, and it's quite a shock going to New York and all the people sleeping on the streets. But it's like that here now. You know, in England, you will see people. In the old days, you see occasional people sleep on the streets, but they were like, we used to call them tramps, and they were just kind of people who wanted to stay in the streets. But now it's people who've fallen out the bottom of the system.
Wow.
Just hit the streets and they can't get back in again.
Mm-hmm.
But again, people trying to find solutions, and there's things happening in the schemes, and there's amazing people doing amazing things, like there is in America, you know, because I think people have the wrong idea about America. So are actually the most generous, welcoming people I've ever met in America. You know, even people who are politically the opposite of me will always welcome you in America, and that's what I like about it. But watching America on the news these days, you get such a warped idea of what it's actually like. I mean, I've toured America in a band. I've been all over it. There's hardly any city I've not been to. Bismarck's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other ones, and everywhere you go, people just chat to you and be really, really friendly. I mean, Americans are outgoing, aren't they? Whereas we're in Britain, we're not so outgoing, but when people get to know you, British people are really nice. But in America, you just sit down in a cafe, people will go, "Where are you from, Mac?"
Yeah, coffee on us. Yeah.
Yeah, and just start chatting in that. So it's, I mean, that's the American spirit, and I guess that's the pioneer spirit. I mean, I love that bit where you are, and that bit in the middle where it's just completely empty, and you could drive for 6 hours and you don't see another person. And the bit below you where it's all cactuses going on forever, it's just amazing. It's like a film set. It's like when we grew up watching westerns, it's like being in a western or something.
That's very amazing. We'd like to have you back on for sure. We'll talk about more on the manifesto, also your 2021 book. It's about trying to remember here. The Hour of Darkness. We'll talk more about that. And what else can we expect from you in 2021 and beyond, John?
Well, I've actually started another 2 books because those 2 books are handed in now. One's out. So I'm working on autobiography. And then I just started writing a novel, which I wasn't really meant to be doing, but I just started writing. It just poured out. And then we got some other projects which aren't music projects. So we're working on a big education project, but so I can't give too many details away. But there's a team working on that. So, yeah, we got a lot of things going on. Yeah.
And that's very
like ideas. Yeah. One thing you have to have the idea, the other thing is you have to finish the idea off, isn't it?
That's right, and that's the best way to do it. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
None really. It's just I don't think you don't necessarily have to have a mentor or an influence. You just trust your own instinct, don't you? And then you just get fascinated by ideas and just going ahead with them. And of course, there's energy from other people that you know, and you bounce ideas off, and that could.
Exactly. And what's the best?
But it's not like I would say. Oh, it's not like you say like some iconic person or something like that. It's more people who aren't iconic. You just know who do good things.
And it sounds like it too. What's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
I think it's all those. I think in America, how can you even tell Americans you've got to have that can-do spirit and believe in yourself? I mean, if there ever was a nation that was like that, it was America. In the last few years, it seemed to have lost its nerve a bit. But it's one of the things I always liked America was that can-do spirit. You know, the idea that, you know, you can actually do things, you can make things happen, you can change things. You know, if you need a house, you just go and build one. If you need to make something happen, you just go and make it happen. And that was a very American thing. Americans never waited for permission to do things. But it just seems to be over the last 10, 15 years, it seemed to lose that little bit and panic a bit. But it's hard. It's a hard thing to maintain that relentless positivity in a world that's not always that positive, is it? You know, so it's hard to maintain that spirit.
That's exactly it. And we're here with John Robb, of the book Manifesto with Dale Vincent, the Mike Wagner Show, writer, musician, TV, radio host, author, DJ, idea, spoken word. Very big thank you for your time, John. You've been absolutely amazing. We got to do this again soon. And once again, tell us about your upcoming project, what's your website, how do people contact you, and where can people check out your websites and also your books as well and music?
Well, the website's called louderthanwar.com. And you can find me on Twitter, John Robb, JOHNROBB77, or on Facebook, all the usuals. You know, just if you Google my name, it will turn up. Although in America, there's another John Robb who's a political and arms analyst who's quite well known in America. And my Twitter and his Twitter always turn up together on the Google searches. I actually wrote to him. I said, this is really weird. We both have the same name and we both crop up all the time on Twitter searches. And he goes, yeah, I know. I've looked you up as well. And I do a lot of filmed interviews on the YouTube channel. And at some point, I'm going to interview him. We talked about this. Could be quite funny because he's quite an interesting guy in a very different world than me. And I thought, John Robb interviews John Robb.
We'll help you make it happen. Once again, John, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Learned a lot from you. Looking forward to having you again soon. Do us a favor, keep us up to date. We'll have you back on in 2021 and beyond. Talk about Manifesto more. And don't forget to keep in touch. We definitely love to have you back. You've been absolutely terrific.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, appreciate that. Brilliant. Yeah.